On December 21st, 2001, a man by the name of Richard Reed walked through the rain to a Paris airport. He then boarded an American Airlines plane that was headed to Miami. On the way there, he pulled out some matches and attempted to light a bomb that was concealed in his shoe. Now, because it was wet because of the rain, the bomb didn't ignite, and the passengers nearby had enough time to smell the smoke. But if that bomb went off, he would have killed himself, blew up the plane, and the 200 passengers that were aboard that flight. Richard Reed is a terrorist. He is currently serving a life sentence for what he did. And like so many other followers of Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, Reed had full intentions of killing innocent Americans. Many controversies are surrounding Guantanamo Bay, where a lot of the terrorists that follow Al-Qaeda and bin Laden are being detained. For example, torture and being detained permanently without trial, which I'll get into a little bit later. Are there any other options for the United States? I believe that Guantanamo Bay should stay open, but there needs to be additional programs implemented to ensure that abuse does not occur and that de-radicalization plans are in place for rehabilitation among detainees. Guantanamo Bay is the United States naval base in Cuba. It was obtained during the Spanish-American War of 1898 and is about 45 square miles. In 2002, it began to be used as a detention facility for the detainees from the War on Terror. About 700 people have passed through the detention center, primarily from Afghanistan and Iraq. As of April 2009, there are approximately 241 detainees currently being held in Guantanamo Bay. Now, the best way to describe it was said by Defense Secretary Rumsfeld, and he said this on June 27, 2005. If you think of the people down there, these are people, all of whom were captured on a battlefield. They're terrorists, trainers, bomb makers, recruiters, financiers, Osama bin Laden's bodyguards, would-be suicide bombers, and probably the 20th 9/11 hijacker. These are people that are going to kill Americans if they have the chance. Denied due process. They've been denied due process because they haven't been given a trial, yes. And there has been some instances of torture. If you turn on the news, you'll probably hear about the CIA doing waterboarding and all this stuff. The CIA does this to get intelligence out of them. These are the guys that work underneath Osama bin Laden. They're the ones that probably know where he's hiding and what he's going to do next. Of course, we're going to try and get stuff out of them. I'm not saying that torture is right, but I'm just saying that that's part of the reason why they do it. Simply closing the camp is not a good solution. Yes, there's torture, and some of that comes out of what the guards go through. Think about it. You're working around the world's most heinous terrorist. You know, the guards fear for their lives. The terrorists have said that they are going to kill Americans if they have the chance. All inmates will be released if Guantanamo Bay gets shut down, and many of them will go right back to working with terrorist organizations. Think about it. Most terrorists come from low-income families, and the only income that they're getting in comes from these terror groups. There's nowhere else for them to go. Trials will not end well. If they're given a trial, many of them will just get released anyway. There's not enough evidence to detain them, and some of the evidence was obtained illegally by interrogation, torture, stuff. And we know that they're going to kill again. So if we release them, they're going to go right back and kill them. So it's kind of like a catch-22 for the United States. And yes, there are human rights, and the United Nations is against keeping Guantanamo Bay open. Another issue that we're facing is the Quran. A lot of times the terrorists, when they go through their training camps, get taught basically the wrong thing. They're taking single verses out of the Quran and taking them out of context. For example, the verse of the sword is a common text that they use to justify their actions. It's from the Quran, Surah 9, verse 5, and it says, "When the sacred months have passed, slay the idolaters wherever you find them. Take them, besiege them, and lie in wait for them at every place of observation." So at first glance, that sounds like, you know, go out and kill people. But if you keep reading, it says, "If they repent afterwards, perform the prayer and pay the alms, then release them. Allah is truly all-forgiving and merciful." So that takes a completely different meaning. They don't read that at those camps. They just read that first part, and that's what justifies their actions. So what I think that we should do is adopt a different kind of approach, a de-radicalization program that's actually currently being implemented in Saudi Arabia. There, 4,000 militants have been helped And the recidivism rates are low. Recidivism means that after they go through the program, they're not going to go back to the terrorist organizations. 80% of them can lead normal lives. It's basically a 6-week program, and their only requirement is that you don't have any blood on your hands. You're not allowed to have killed anyone to go through the program. And they cannot leave freely. So once they're in the program, they have to stay there. It de-radicalizes them in a way. They learn how to be normal citizens. There's clerics there who go through the Quran and teach them the right way to read it, and they teach them about these verses that they're taking out of context. And the Saudi Arabian government gives the families of these people money so that they don't feel like they need to go back to terrorist organizations, and they help them find a job so that they don't have to be terrorists anymore. So closing Gitmo will not solve the problem. Additional programs like de-radicalization programs like Saudi Arabia have need to be put in place. As citizens, we also need to be aware and educate ourselves about terrorism and controversies like Guantanamo Bay. So again, I bring up Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, and my professor, Dr. Kenny, did some field work, and he learned that Richard Reed visited his old mosque before he went to do this attack, and he was talking to some people there. And the people basically tried to convince him that what Osama bin Laden was teaching was wrong. And by the end of the night, Richard Reed was convinced that what he was learning and what Osama bin Laden was teaching wasn't correct. And I believe that if there was a de-radicalization program for him to go to, he would have never boarded that plane with the bomb in his shoe. And I believe he would have gotten help. He would have never put 200 people's lives at risk, and he would have never been a terrorist. Thank you.